Good morning, people. Welcome to Success Tree classes. Well, we are starting now Newspaper Manthan video lecture series. In this video lecture series of Newspaper Manthan, we'll cover current affair analysis, means analysis of the newspapers, the important newspapers, and important articles in them. For example, Hindu, Indian Express, Business Standard, Mint, these kind of the papers will cover. Moreover, we'll do Yojana economic survey in the India Yearbook of next year. And once we start in the initial classes, we will try to build up a base and we'll cover the major issues starting from the last, say, 8 to 10 months. So, for example, last December 2016-15, we'll start the basic issues. And this is just to build up the momentum, because you cannot compartmentalize the current affair issues. They keeps on going. There are certain major issues that have been there in the last couple of years, and they are equally important right now as well. So if you like our videos, you hit like, subscribe to our channel, and comment on the comment section given below. You can also tell your opinion about what more things we can add in our videos, or certain major issues that you feel are important, and if you skip them, you can let us know in the comment section given below. So here we go.
Start with what it means. So any question in UPSC, I'm talking about the mains, we'll ask you to write about a particular thing, right? And that a question would have an operative word. For instance, if they're asking about critically analyze the environmental impact of interlinking of rivers, the operative word is interlinking of rivers, right? So if you've noticed, all the toppers, all the UPSC guru would advise you to start with a good starter, an introduction, and end it with a good conclusion, a positive, some say positive, optimistic. So an explanation of what it actually means, interlinking of rivers, is due in that context. So interlinking just means that peninsular and Himalayan rivers, the major river components of our Indian peninsula, are interlinked or joined through a series of reservoirs and canals, so that their water capabilities are distributed and shared. I don't think you have to write it down if you are, because the points are already stated in those notes. So why is it advocated? We have this twin problem that we face every year. In the summer, there is water shortage, and in some areas it's really severe drought. And in the monsoon season, as you see in Bihar and MP now, this severe waterlogging, as in flood, in fact. So this is some tout it as a panacea for this twin problem that we face every year. So is it an all-encompassing solution, or does it have its own share of problems? That's what we're going to discuss now. So my aim with this discussion is to give you some points as to positive and negatives of interlinking. But before moving on to that, some of the basic funda about it, from the prelims point of view. One, it involves both Himalayan and peninsular river. So it has basically three components: the Himalayan component, the peninsular river component. I'm sure you have the basic understanding about the river systems, right? We have Himalayan rivers, which are perennial, and we have our peninsular river, which are seasonal. And there's an intrastate component also, that the state, the rivers inside the state will also be linked. This is the third component of this interlinking project. It serves you to remember this thing because it might come as a preliminary question. So it's not just about Himalayan rivers, or it's not just about our peninsular rivers. It's about both, plus intrastate rivers. In fact, if you look at this year's question paper, they asked, if you've written this year's exam, you would know that, or seen the question paper for that matter, you would know that there was a simple question on which was the project that was just finished in this aspect. Krishna Godavari. Krishna Godavari, in fact, is an intra-state. It's an AP project, and the AP government finished it under Polavaram project. So you know your facts. So I'm sure you know that the Ministry of Water Resources controls, as in runs the project, and there's a National Water Development Agency which is handling the project. Now let's move on to the positives. Obvious, it solves the water shortage crisis. We are totally dependent on 90% of the country is totally dependent on monsoon. It's one, erratic, and two, uneven. So when you are writing about monsoon in 2 or 3 words, these are the 2 critical words: erratic and uneven distribution along the Indian Peninsula. Whereas the western coast receives high amount of rainfall, like northeast. Gangetic plains receive moderate amount, and if you move along the Deccan, it varies from moderate to really scarce. And Rajasthan, you know that the Rajasthan desert, it's below 50 centimeters. So monsoons are uneven, and so and our canal projects are not universally distributed in terms of its expanse. Some parts of Rajasthan and Punjab and some parts of Haryana is well covered, but not the rest of the country. It's very patchy, in other words. So this interlinking can help, one, in solving the irrigation problems and even the water scarcity in our tier 2 cities and villages. 2, it can solve the problem of flooding, as it's happening in Bihar now, and I think it just got over in Madhya Pradesh. So it can solve that problem as well, so that some of the rivers like Koshi in Bihar and Damodar, which are known for flooding every year, and which is notorious for changing its course every second or third year, that can be solved. And there's a negative side to it as well. We'll come to that. So the second advantage is solving the flood problem. I'm sure you can figure it out how it solves. When the water gets redistributed, flooding wouldn't happen, or the flooding will at least get mitigated. So that's the second. Third is, when we are doing that, we'll provide a lot of jobs for. It's a huge project, and it's estimated that we are going to spend 5 lakh crore rupees over the next few decades. So that would create a lot of jobs, one, and that would create a lot of jobs in agriculture as well. When you receive stable water flow in your farm, migration will be stopped. Migration to the cities will be stopped. People will remain in agriculture, and the expected benefit is our agriculture input will go up, farmer income would go up, etc. So that's the third thing. Fourth, microhydel projects, electricity generation. We are really looking forward to sustainable electricity sources. We are investing a lot in solar. We are investing a lot in nuclear as well. So this is another source. In fact, we depend on hydroelectricity more than nuclear, solar, wind, all the other new age renewable energy put together. And our renewable energy mission is planning to invest a lot on micro irrigation as well. So that can be synergized with interlinking. So that's another benefit. Then some of the other trivial benefit would include fisheries. When canals and reservoirs are created, it can be enclosed, and commercial fisheries can happen. That's another aspect of employment generation. Then another is there will be a lot of peripheral infrastructure that will be created through roads, etc. That would in fact contribute to the infrastructure. Some of these points are not there. These are things that I've picked up. So maybe you can jot down just in a couple of words, so that when you're revising it, it will just add to your. So the points that are not there is 1, fisheries, 2 is hydroelectricity, 3 is peripheral infrastructure. So I think you've got 6-7 points, right, to write a decent answer about the benefits. Now we'll look at the negatives, the problems.
Very long term, definitely it will going to serve
Yeah, that's also a point. That's one point I forgot to mention. Yeah.
Declaration of national waterway.
Yes. In fact, we have just announced the 6th national waterway that's being that would be implemented in Brahmaputra, and we have as a
They are searching for possibilities.
there.
In Rajasthan, this was the question.
Oh.
In prelims.
Okay, yeah, that was the question, right? Yeah, true. Other than that, we have plans to make more than 100 waterways.
185 plus existing 5, then one Bharat system. So 6, then 105 total 111.
Okay, you know your facts. Great. Yeah, good.
I have no reason.
Yeah. So inland waterways is the possibility. It's a possibility. It's not really obvious there. So is another point that you can add to the positives. So the negatives. Obviously, we can use a couple of subheadings to really drive our points home. We can divide it into economic, environmental, and social. We'll first start with the environmental bit. As is obvious, a lot of forest is going to get submerged or destroyed. 2, it's going to affect the water cycle, the fisheries, the major river systems, Brahmaputra, and you must have, when you prepare for your prelims, you must have seen that there are critically endangered and endangered.
Example is
Ken Betwa, yeah, true. Yeah.
10,000 hectare land of forest land have to be diverted for this project. Italy.
Okay, yeah. So if you know more facts, just add. Again, in an actual exam situation, it always helps to have additional points, but make sure that you have your fundamentals clear, and then add points like the fact he just mentioned to buttress your answer. Rather than just writing a point, make sure that you have these subheadings and your points clearly written down, and buttress it with your facts. Okay. So, like he said, there are issues of forest getting submerged. There are issues of critically endangered fish. For instance, Gangetic dolphin. It's not critically endangered, I think it's endangered. And there is critically endangered fishes like Indian mahseer, etc., which is found in this water, especially in the Himalayan rivers. So all their existence is threatened because all of them depend on the perennial flow of water in towards a certain direction. Then moving on. Then it says that Himalayan, you know that Himalayan region is prone to seismic activities, right? So it's one of the most vulnerable places in India, in the Himalayan region, and this can the creation of more and more dams would affect the stability of the region. So that can be another point. A lot of micro dams and reservoirs are being planned as a part of this project. So that's another point. So all of them can be included here in the environmental bit. Second is social. A lot of poor people, especially tribal population, would get displaced. They lose their employment, which is based on these forests and the land they are located. So the project doesn't really talk about the rehabilitation plan, that has to be chalked out. So we still are not clear about the social impact. And going by the history of the rehabilitation programs in our country, it doesn't offer much hope to the people who are internally displaced. So the operative words when you are describing this displacement is internal displacement. So displacement can be refugee migration as well, like you cross the boundary of your country in search of greener pasture. But here, when you move inside your country, it's internal displacement. That's the word that you need to use. Okay. Then we'll move on to economic. First is the money involved. It said that the current estimate is 5 lakh crore, and that's a lot of money. So the feasibility and the ability of our government to raise this kind of money, and its positive benefit, does it outweigh the cost, the benefits? That we really don't know. And it said that a lot of this project depend on the source of water, which are the glaciers. And if you go by the IPCC reports, we won't even have half of the glaciers that are supplying water to the Himalayan rivers by 2050. So the source of water is still in question. So in that case, will it be economically feasible? As in, we make all this infrastructure in the next 50 odd years or 40 odd years, and then we find that all the water sources are gone. So that's one negative. Then again, it's not a solution to the change in course of rivers like Damodar or Kosi. So you build the infrastructure and then the river starts changing course on its own. Again, all this infrastructure goes redundant. So that is these are some of the points that are not there in that you can note down that. So I'm sure you picked up a few points on all these three heads, right? So when you're asked to write critically analyze, you can use this format if you wish. I'm just giving you some models to bank on. So that's basically the issues. Anything that you want to add to this that will enrich our discussion?
One thing I think that can be added is sometimes the way conflicts that arise among the states in terms of the canals. For example, recently when Haryana stopped the supply to Delhi, and similarly we have the case of Mandvi River which has arisen between the states like Karnataka and Goa. So these kind of feuds, I think they sometimes lead
interstate water dispute, right? That's a good point. It also means consent from the states to create this infrastructure. So that's another issue that when we added to the economic point. I think that's mentioned in your material as well. So we can conclude that going by UPSC way of thinking, on a positive note, yes, it's a great plan with a lot of potential and can be one of the sources. But this should be coupled with one, feasibility studies and effective environmental impact assessments. Two, with other supporting ways of saving water like water harvesting, creating other infrastructure to save water.
So, if they suppose if they are not interlinking of river, this project is not going to happen. If suppose, so definitely population is growing, economic activity is growing, diversification. So water as a precious resource, जरूरत पड़ेगी, नए वेंचर्स स्टार्ट हो रहे हैं, तो डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ नीड वाटर की अराइज हो रही है. तो अगर इंटरलिंकिंग नहीं है, हम नहीं इस पर काम कर रहे हैं, तो व्हाट नेक्स्ट? बिकॉज दोस आर लास्ट 2 years ड्रॉट प्रोन, तो फ्यूचर में फिर क्या होगा अगर ये नहीं है? आपने बोला कि
if you look at some of these articles which are really critical about the interlinking, or when I was preparing for this class, I was going through a couple of articles that's written in Down to Earth, in which Sunita Narayan criticized one of this project in a blanket fashion. She says that the other systems like saving water through recreating our traditional water saving system, like if you've gone through the water yojana, it talks about a lot of traditional system that we have been following, like Zabo system in the northeast, like the Kundis etc. in the North India, and South has its own. So revive that one, that had our farmers had been using this since ages. That they stopped using when green revolution etc. happened, and the way agriculture has gone changed. Two is water harvesting systems. If you know, in cities now there is a mandatory area specific mandates to build water reservoirs and through which water is collected. So those things are recommended. As regards how feasible that is to solve the larger problem and how mandatory, how voluntary it is, it's an open question. I think for UPSC purposes, I think I hope this discussion serves to write a decent answer about interlinking, right? So there are a lot of more questions that we need to answer about drought, water conservation, irrigation. That will deal, like Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, you should know. So all that will be dealt in the future classes. So this is just one aspect, and I wanted to start the issue with water because water have been in limelight on a lot of fronts: flood, irrigation, this issue. So we will cover one by one in the following classes. So this is the primary class we'll again, if something happens on interlinking, we'll again come discuss and revise these points. But for now, let's move on to the next topic, because I think we already spent around 20-25 minutes on this. Diffusing judicial burden. A lot of news coming in newspapers and your TV these days about primarily by our Supreme Court Chief Justice. He's saying a lot of things about our legislature and executive, about their will or lack of will to set things right in judiciary. A lot has been happening. NJSC, then a lot of pending cases in all levels of court, from lower to the appellate to the Supreme Court. So today we are going to discuss rather a bit trivial but a very good point that you can use in your essay, one. Two, either as a point to help, when a question is about how judiciary can be improved, you can use this as a point. Or it may, given judiciary, UPSC's unpredictability, it can come as a standalone question. The issue is National Court of Appeal. A couple of, I think 4 or 5 months back, our Supreme Court, rather curiously, had suggested that let's create to the executive, to the center, let's create a National Court of Appeal. Curiously, because earlier Supreme Court had vehemently criticized similar moves to create a separate court or regional benches. I think what necessitated is the kind of flux that our judicial system is in right from the top, wherein cases are pending in a really, really bad way. As in, it's said that in another 10 years or so, the system, if it continues like this, would collapse. This is very important because judiciary is one of the basic pillars, one of the 3 pillars of our state, if I say so. And it's and on top of it, it's the only system that the common man still have complete, at least a good trust on. So it's really important to improve our judicial system. And National Court of Appeal can be one such measure to reduce the number of cases at the appellate court. You know the difference between lower courts and appellate courts, I'm sure. Appellate courts are basically Supreme Court and the High Court, wherein cases from the lower court are appealed and heard. So High Court and Supreme Court can hear appeal, and those are the appellate courts. So National Court of Appeal would come as an intermediary between Supreme Court and High Court. Nowadays, a lot of cases are pending in all levels. It's said that more than 3 crores of cases are, you can use some of this figure to, just show that you really know the issue. More than 3 crores, this is a 2014 estimate. More than 3 crores of cases are pending in our courts. That's in all our courts, right from the top to the bottom. And in Supreme Court alone in 2015, more than 63,000 cases are pending. That's a huge number. We only have a few judges sitting there, right? And that too, most of them sits in benches, right? So it's only a few benches that's happening that will be on at a given point of time. So the issue is real, and one solution is National Court of Appeal. So again, going by our standard pattern, let's first know what National Court of Appeal is. how will we describe National Court of Appeal? It acts as a final court of justice in dealing with appeals from High Court. So people, you know the basic system, right? People appeal their case. If they lose the case, they will appeal to High Court. And again, if they lose it again, the trend is that they would for sure appeal. If there is any possibility and the Supreme Court is ready to accept their case, and if they have money, they would appeal to Supreme Court as well. So, is Supreme Court's primary role, is it to be just remain as a court of appeal, or is it a primary court? Is its primary function taking decision on constitutional matters? If you look at United States have two Supreme Courts. One is Supreme Court at the state level, that's called the Supreme Court, and there's a federal court as well. And the federal courts here only matters related to constitution and the constitutionality of certain law. Whereas the highest court of appeal usually in United States is the Supreme Court of that state. So can't we follow a similar pattern? Not exactly a copy of that fashion, but something similar. Will National Court of Appeal be a definitive move towards integrating and improving our system? So that's what we are going to explore now. You know that Article 130 of the Constitution says that the Supreme Court will be seated in Delhi, right? Is it something written on stone? Is it part of basic structure? We don't have answers because Supreme Court has not told that it's a part of basic structure. So we never know. Some of the arguments against National Court of Appeal say that okay, this Article 130 says so it can be changed. But in my opinion, it's a flimsy argument. We'll come to that. I'm sorry to digress. Let's first look at the positives. So now you know what National Court of Appeal is, right? So let's look at how it helps reducing the number of cases. So the judiciary in the Supreme Court gets to hear all kinds of cases, appeals to all kinds of cases, but it's primarily meant to be a constitutional court. Yeah, constitutional court would hear only matters which are of primal importance to the Constitution, or which decides the legality or illegality of a certain act, whether that act or legislation is in conformity with the Constitution. Article 13, I'm sure you have done your Lakshmikant, right? So that's one argument. It will reduce the number of cases. So the National Court of Appeal would be the final court of appeal. Only if the question pertains to a critical question on Constitution will it go to Supreme Court. So it's a buffer between Supreme Court and High Court. So it will help in reducing the number of appeals that goes to the Supreme Court. Second is the geographical proximity. I was reading another article found online where it said that geographical proximity is a critical question when it comes to appeal. Most of the appeals that goes to Supreme Court are from Punjab, Haryana High Court, which means only thing, it's close to Supreme Court, right? So people have the lawyers and the people can come to Supreme Court and do their litigation, whereas people from South and people from Northeast, it's difficult to appeal to Supreme Court. One is the geographical constraint and associated economic constraints to come and employ a good lawyer, a gainfully employed lawyer. So that's an issue that will be solved when National Court of Appeal with regional benches are created. 3. It would relieve Supreme Court to hear, again it's associated with the first point, it would relieve Supreme Court to hear matters of critical legal importance. It said that in the US Supreme Court, less than 100 cases come to the court every year. It's an enviable position, as in, it depends on how our judges see it. Our judges might later see it as an erosion of their power. But personally, I find it very attractive that the Supreme Court judges can really spend time to decide matters of critical importance to our Constitution and come up with good, legally sound judgments. Now they hardly get 2 or 3 days to prepare for a judgment. And unlike in the US, where there is a big paraphernalia of researchers that help a judge, our judges have very few legal interns to help them. So it will give them time to prepare legally sound, constitutionally sound judgments. So these are the positive points that you can write. Some of it are not given there. So what you can do is briefly annotate right on the corners. You know annotation, right? It helps in revision as well. Write in corners the points. Some of the points I'm basically a lawyer, so I know some of these points from my general knowledge. This is a very good point that you can help to buttress your point as regards to geographical proximity. It's a fact that most of the appeal that comes to Supreme Court are from Punjab and Haryana High Court. Ultimately, our aim is to give you points that you can reproduce, that you can remember, not just facts like you find it in some random note that's been distributed online and in the market, and help you revise it and remember it. So that's the point of this class primarily is to, when we were preparing for our exams, we never had this luxury of having current affairs newspaper classes. So you're bombarded with a plethora of information which you are unable to process, and this keeps piling up. If you miss a week's news, you suffer really bad. So this program is seen as a solution for that kind of problems. So moving on, these are the positives. What are the negatives? Negatives, in my opinion, are very flimsy. It says that it will dilute the sacrosanctity of our constitution, which is really not the case. But if you really want to argue on that line in your answer script, or just to list out the negative points, the question may be about the negative points as well. It involves dilution of constitution. You can cite Article 130, which says that the seat of the constitution will be in Delhi, and if any change needs to be made, there should be a constitutional amendment. But constitution is a dynamic document, in my opinion, and constitution ultimately is the representation of the will of the people. So if the will of the people is to have more courts, a court where they can really access, who are our judges or whoever in the executive to decide that the decision is otherwise? I don't think so. So then the problem is how judiciary late, even if it's established, how would judiciary treat these organizations, treat these courts? If you see, if you can talk to a little about legal history, we had created central administrative tribunals, right? And so there are a lot of tribunals that we have established. Central Administrative Tribunal is one of those tribunals which are exclusively dedicated to solve dispute related to central services. It's envisaged as the final court to decide this matter, but later in L. Chandrakumar's case, it's in Lakshmikant also, so it's not a very trivial legal thing. Supreme Court decided that the High Court can be a court of appeal to the decisions of the Central Administrative Court. So if something similar happens in this case, later through a judgment, the Supreme Court says that okay, National Court of Appeals can be there, but it can again be appealed in Supreme Court, its purpose is beaten. So that can be a negative point, but it's all in future. So this can be one of the negative points. Are you able to follow what I'm saying? Is it fine? Yeah. So what I'll ask you right now is to quickly go through this article. There are more points given. I just discussed the basic points. If you are not clear with something, ask me. You find it warm here? I do. Yeah, I'm just trying to find the office boy. Are you done? Anything that you want clarification? Did you find the word letters patent in the term letters patent in one of the sentences there? Letters patent, and any idea what it is? Letters patent appeal. In the last few paragraphs before conclusion, can someone tell me what letter patent appeal is? That couple of points is in fact slightly legal, as it legal as opposed to general polity point. So letters patent mean it means nothing. As a lettered person, it's a simple term. It just means the power of court to refer, the power of a single bench to refer a matter to a division bench. That's letters patent. The word derives from letters patent that gives power to the high courts of Bombay, Chennai, and Delhi that was created in the 19th century by the British. Okay, it's a trivial issue. I am pretty sure UPSC won't ask that question, but just for your information. So again, we'll give it a positive conclusion to the whole discussion. Yes, National Court of Appeal can be a solution, but the sensitivities of judiciary, etc., should be considered, and the executive should be considered. And this is not a panacea. This just talks about one of the solutions that can be implemented at the appellate level, at the higher court level. There are 3 courts in total, the number of cases that are pending at all levels. So there are a lot of other measures that can be taken to improve the overall situation. We will discuss in the later classes and a few other points, like there's something called national litigation policy that our government came up with last year or year before last year, and a few other points, how and exclusive, and we'll comprehensively discuss all the solutions that have been discussed to solve the problem of pendency of cases in judiciary. So maybe for now you can just note down the point, national litigation policy. Let's move on to the next issue. Any questions? No? Okay. Next we're going to discuss Siachen. I'm sure the place is familiar to you. First, we'll start with I'm sure the issue is also familiar to you, but we'll discuss some points that we can use in an exam. And we will start with its location. You know where it is, right? Approximately it's over here.
Yes.
It's the Indian occupied Kashmir, if I may. It's not a politically correct word, but the part of the Kashmir that is under our governance. This part is this is Gilgit-Baltistan, which is under POK. It's Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and so is some parts of this area. And this is Aksai Chin, which is with China. Siachen is here. Remember this not here, it's here. And how the whole problem came into being?
So because according to the pact with the Pakistani counterpart, we have only demarcation to particular dead pointers. को कुछ बोलते मुझे याद नहीं है. तो वहाँ पर उन्होंने पैक्ट पे साइन किया और उसके बाद एक पॉइंट उन्होंने लिखा था टू द नॉर्थ पोल.
Yeah, exactly. So
इंडिया के हिसाब से नॉर्थ पोल ऊपर होना चाहिए, पाकिस्तान के हिसाब से ऐसे होना चाहिए. That is the whole issue. So 1984 में ऑपरेशन मेघदूत के द्वारा हमने उसको द्वारा से ऑक्यूपाई किया था. So some says militarily किया हमारे लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है.
okay, so you again you know your facts, but let's put it in an orderly fashion so that in an exam situation we can use it in a very formalized way. So this is what happened on to take you back to history. 1947 when partition happened, right after partition, tribal militia barged into Kashmir, and Kashmir till then was an independent state ruled by Raja Hari Singh, and he panicked. He called for help from the Indian government. Indian government sent their troop and stopped the tribal militia somewhere along here, which later became the line of control, LOC. I'm sure you know LOC Kargil. So LOC was drawn next year in 1948 in Karachi Agreement. Like he said, there is a point here. It's called NJ 4892. I think I'm getting the number right. Yeah, it's 9842. Sorry. So in the agreement, they said from this point and thence north. It's Old English, Victorian English. The boundary would be demarcated. So Pakistan and India has different interpretation about thence north. Pakistan says that thence north would go northeast from that point, which would mean that Siachen is theirs. Whereas we wanted to draw almost in 90 degree northwards, which would mean that Siachen is ours. Right now, you should know that most of the Siachen is with us, but parts of the Siachen is with the Pakistan Army. We have occupied the upper limits of the upper portion of Siachen, and Pakistan has the lower limits towards the north and northwest. So, why is it in news? Why are we discussing it today? Of course, a few months back, some of the precious lives of our army personals were lost there. Hanumantappa, the whole issue. Plus, a couple of years back, Pakistan had lost more than 70 soldiers there. Pakistan is occupying the lower reaches, and there was an avalanche, and they lost almost 70. So, loss of life there is putting a big question mark on the feasibility and the necessity of occupying this place. But before moving on to the mains part of our discussion, let's have some. You know where it is, right? Karakoram range, which is trans Himalaya actually. It's not even outer Himalaya, it's trans Himalaya. It's after Himalayas. Saskar, then Karakoram. You know the location. Then few other facts. It's the highest battleground. It's called the third pole because it has the highest glacier, the biggest glacier after North Pole and South Pole. Then Nubra flows from Nubra River, originates from Siachen Glacier. Nubra is the tributary of Shlo, which is in turn the tributary of Indus. So it also emanates from Siachen Glacier. So these are some trivia for the prelims. So how did we come to occupy the upper reaches? Like we said, in the 1948 agreement, there was a point, this point, NJ 9842. From thence north would be the boundary, which was never demarcated. In 1972, we entered into another agreement related to boundaries, etc., with Pakistan, the Simla agreement, which also did not deal with this issue. So the issue remained open then also. Then in 1984, like he said, Operation Meghdood, what necessitated that? Pakistan slowly started conducting military exercise near Siachen Glacier, and they started giving permits to international expedition from their side to go to Siachen Glacier. So India learnt about it, and we had our own plans, and we sent a military expedition, an army expedition, which reached the upper reaches of Siachen in April 1984, and then we learned that Pakistan was just a week away reaching and occupying this place. So we were just a week ahead of Pakistan in occupying the upper limits. So the problem is, once a country or a military unit occupies, it's very difficult to get them back. So Pakistan did the next best thing. They occupied the lower reaches, and there were a lot of gun battles that happened till 2003, and in 2003 there was a ceasefire agreement. I'm just giving you a bit of background so that you can appreciate what's happening right now. So since then we are losing life not on bullets but on harsh weather. Almost 2,800 men have lost life, both from our side and Pakistan, and we have lost close to 800 soldiers there. The temperature is freezing. The average is around minus 55. It can reach close to 80. And poisonous gases are found in some of those ices, like carbon monoxide, which are again killing people. Then the common problems associated with extreme temperature, like frostbite, wherein your flesh goes frozen and eventually need to be severed. That's happening to a lot of soldiers. So that's happening. So one criticism about Siachen occupation is the human cost that's associated. Is it worth it? Two is the money. It said that we are spending more than 2 crores a day to maintain that small unit of army, which is hardly around 100 people. And Pakistan around that much, but to a lesser extent in terms of money. Two is the strategic importance. A lot of people say that it's strategically not important to occupy that place. It doesn't. Yes, it's a vantage point that you could see both sides, but it ends there. You cannot conduct any feasible military operations basing your army in Siachen Glacier. So it's not a feasible battleground or a vantage point. It's just a watchtower. How much that watchtower should cost you in terms of human and money? That's very, very much debated. The other camp says that it's really important because it, again, the same point. It's a natural watchtower, and you have your two most important enemies on both sides, and you can really watch their activities both in Aqsa-Chin and their border in Pakistan border in Gilgit-Baltistan. But some says that it's a struggle of two bald men over a comb. That you can use in your essay, or it's a struggle of two bald men. It's not there, so if you want to write it down, you can. Struggle of two bald men over a comb. So those are the points that I want to discuss. Anything that you need to add with this? Anything at all? From your repository of knowledge? No? So what are the solutions? If you've seen this article, I took this point from an article in Hindu. Demilitarizing, it's written by Hapimon Jacob, who is teaching in JNU, and he discussed. These are not his points. Most of them are discussed in other forums, other literature. Some say that a complete demilitarization is what is necessary. Both the armies withdrawing and declaring it as a peace park or a scientific area wherein only scientific expeditions are allowed and mutually agreed upon scientific expeditions are allowed. Some say that there should be another agreement as to decide what this dense north would be, and that's an ideal situation. We are not ready to be on it. The most basic problem is the trust deficit. We don't trust Pakistan with discussion. If we withdraw our army, believing that the whole area would be demilitarized, that might not happen. Pakistan, if you leave the area, Pakistan might right then go and occupy the higher reaches. So it's the trust deficit that's the basic problem. You can use that word, trust deficit between India. The same is the problem with Sir Creek. You know the issue. We'll discuss it another day. So the trust deficit is a basic problem with regard to border management. You can use it when you are arguing about India-China border dispute also. There's a trust deficit, but that's more aggravated when it comes to India-Pakistan. Then there are a couple of other trivial suggestions that are mentioned there. You can go through them, and when asked, choose a couple of them to conclude your answer as a solution. UPSC will never ask you a solution for a particular problem, as in especially border dispute, etc. But you can use it to write your conclusion. Anything that you want to add? Okay. So let's do an exercise here in terms of writing. Can you in 5 minutes write down the points that you could come on top of your mind? It's voluntary, about the interlinking of rivers, positives and negatives. On top of your mind, just try to reproduce a few points in your own paper.
Negative points.
Positives and negatives, just points. Yeah. Whatever comes to your mind. Switch on the AC. It's really, really hot. Done? Do you mind telling me the points you've written? It's just the points.
Yes, sir. So definitely, flood and drought basically is a two aspect of same issue, that is water. So positive point is here is surplus water को deficit जहाँ पे जरूरत होता है वहाँ पे
That's one.
channelize करते हैं.
Okay.
Second कि अगर ये process realize हो जाता है then reduce the vagaries of monsoon होता है नहीं होता है तो at least some extent तक हम monsoon की जो farmers bear करता है burden vagaries of monsoon उसको reduce
So basically irrigation, right?
Irrigation.
Stable irrigation. Okay, that's the second point.
So agriculture and allied activities didn't get hurt or disturbed. Positive point ये है जैसे आपने बोला कि fisheries and all trickle down effect और allied activities को boost होगा. Another point is hydel energy sector, electricity, small check dams, many projects, and potential waterways, to inlet waterways,
Okay,
which is
that's 6.
Project there. So within the country, interstate or interstate waterways, etc. Negative points.
Yeah. Anything to add to what is mentioned?
Yes, sir.
Anything? I'm asking the others.
I think when we talk about the inland transportation,
Yeah.
Through the waterways, I think something that can be done in this regard is that we can actually talk of not the ships or for that matter gigantic structures that would sort of enhance the transportation on the waterways, but certainly the small aspects of transportation can actually be looked forward to, which would certainly give employment to various people who live in the local regions.
Okay.
And something this sort of.
You mean maybe big cargoes cannot be transported in this small canals, which are envisaged as it would be, but certainly a way of transporting people, mostly
Transporting
people
and
goods in lesser quantities, right?
No, sir, that is a potential, not maybe not realized right now, but in future.
Yeah, maybe if we get time to write all that, that's go ahead and write.
Because
But yeah,
the objective of that program started by Ministry of Trade is Sagarmala, wood-led industrialization.
yeah.
So maybe futuristic. So we can
See, this is a very good thing that you can do. Link it with other schemes, like maybe Sagarmala is one scheme that our government is planning, through which port cities are connected through multiple modes, and waterways can be one of that modes. Yeah, so synergies can be built from both, as in from both the projects, right? As in, if the funds are and the activities are coupled and aligned, synergies can be drawn. So such kind of positive suggestion can be made in your answer. So, but this exam is all about points. The more points you write, which are there in the answer key of the person correcting the exam, especially in this kind of question when you are just asked about the advantages, or write as many points as possible first, and then make sure that it's well explained, and if you have extra facts to add to the points to buttress your answer, to support your answer, go ahead and do that, but don't harp on one point. That's my point. For instance, what you have discussed is a very good point, that maybe large cargoes cannot be transported, as we envisage in our national waterways. Large cargo might not be possible to be moved through this smaller network of canals and reservoirs. But certainly people and minor cargoes to a smaller extent, right, to a smaller distance. But that's a very good point, that's a very valid point as well. But the problem is, once you start making those points in a general question, you wouldn't get time to do write about other things. So it's a good point that you can remember, especially when you are asked about something like that in an essay or perhaps interview. So keep your thoughts open. But as regards main, I would again like to stress, it's all about points, especially when the question is about the positive, negatives, benefits, etc., where you have to list out a few things. So make sure that whatever you have as points is on the paper. Okay. Anything on negatives?
So the negatives, first of all, the kind of volume of money which is involved in this particular project is very high, and then the kind of political inconsistency which we see in Indian politics is one of the biggest bottleneck in successfully running this project from end to end. It is one of the biggest.
You mean the funding, right?
Funding is one part.
Yeah.
So
And the corruption and the politics involved.
political will, because we see that the politics keeps on changing in India, and according to the will also.
See, why I'm trying to ask you to repeat this point is, see, maybe your political will point can be another point. When you talk about the economics, just talk about the economics. This has two benefits. One is you show the examiner that you are very clear about concepts. 2 is you have another point as well, which might be another half marks or quarter marks.
And it controls the internal displacement, which we talked about, helps in reducing internal displacement and also burden on urban population.
Okay, and the see, did any of you follow this pattern to write down? Yeah, okay. So let's first discuss the environment briefly.
My point is that the economics wala part, I don't think matlab ye really concern, because the reason is very simple. In economics, majorly
I understand it's very presumptive, right? We are assuming that this would happen, but purely in terms of writing points, will it be helpful? Yes, it will be, right? Yeah. So you can first discuss environmental and social, and then move on to economic. Or if you really wish not to write, you go ahead and ignore it. As in, everyone has their own style of doing things, right? As in, so that's beside the point. But make sure that if there are a lot of points and you can subdivide those points into and put in under subheadings, do that, which would make your answer very systematic. If you look at the answer scripts of toppers, you would see that they really have points and they really have subheadings.
My point is that
Yeah.
मैं ये बस prove करना चाह रहा था
हाँ.
कि मनरेगा में हर बार इतना पैसा खर्च होता है, यूज मनी 38,000 करोड़ इतना इस ईयर का एलोकेशन है. तो इंस्टीड ऑफ डिगिंग होल्स और ये सारी चीजें यूजलेस, तो इंटरलिंकिंग ये प्रोजेक्ट में अगर वो सारे लेबर को चैनलाइज करें, ठीक है, तो इट्स नॉट वेस्टिंग ऑफ मनी.
True, but will it realize the real potential? Especially the question. These are all questions posed by experts or biased or unbiased. I'm just repeating. One is the feasibility. Glacier, the water sources are bound to deplete, especially the glacial sources. 2 is the erratic monsoon. Again, will the Godavari will it have the same amount of water? These are all presumptive. As in, I understand that. As in, so we are really discussing it only from the mains writing points point of view. True. That's what I'm. As a positive point, you can write employment generation in the project itself, not just agriculture. Sure, you can write that. As in, you can like you spoke about Sagarmala. Manrega activities can also be channelized for the creation of infrastructure for interlinking. So that's drawing synergies from flagship projects, right? As in, that's what the government is trying to do as well. Rationalize, declutter multiple programs, draw synergies, etc. That's our government. That's what our government is trying to do right now. Okay. So why I'm discussing like this? I'm again telling you it will declutter a lot of points that is spread across in your mind. It will give you a framework to think and place your answers in. So make sure that this is just a template. As in, it won't be feasible for another question, or you might have a better strategy. But make sure that you declutter your mind space and have proper points and subheadings. Okay, that's all I'm trying to say. Let's move on to the next topic. Anything you want to add? You sure? Yeah, okay. But you can really talk to me, okay? It's not an issue at all. Euthanasia. There are multiple issues. We had Santara judgment. I'm sure some of you must have heard about it. Then Jain community. That was one very recent issue related to euthanasia or right to die. Couple of months before that, there was a draft bill related to euthanasia, medical treatment of terminally ill patient, protection of patients and medical practitioners bill. Since last couple of years, UPSC has this habit of asking about bills that are still pending, so it's not trivial. They might ask specifically about this bill, not a general question about euthanasia. So it would serve you well to remember a few points about the bill as well. So what are the important features of this bill? It's given in the second article. There are 2 articles on euthanasia in that material. It's the second article. The article is titled "The Rights of the Terminally Ill." According to the bill, every competent person, including minors aged above 16, has a right to take a decision and express the desire to the medical practitioner attending on her or him. The bill goes on to say that a decision will be binding on the medical practitioner. It also provides protection to patients and doctors from any liability arising from such decision making. The Medical Council of India is the authority to formulate guidelines. We don't know the future of that organization yet. In case any patient is not competent enough to take a decision, then his or her next best kin, I'm sure you know the word kin, right? Kin is the relative and kith is friends. So the next of kin, that would be your sister, your mother or father or brother, including spouse, parents or sibling, or your son or daughter, can approach the High Court, which will have to take a decision within a period of 1 month. So basically this is kind of formalizing the Aruna Schonberg decision. Aruna Schonberg case was about, it happened a few years back. A nurse was brutally raped by a ward boy, and she was paralyzed beyond recovery. So there was a petition to end her life, mercy killing, and the Supreme Court in that case held that passive euthanasia, that is withdrawal of life support, as against active euthanasia, which is injecting a lethal dose of poison to kill her, is permitted, and it wouldn't amount to suicide. So the Supreme Court in that case had also asked the legislature to make appropriate law in this regard, and the response is, after a few years we have this particular bill, and these are the important points which if you go through it again, you would get the gist of it. Basically it gives the right to a terminally ill patient to express his or her desire to end her life. But some of the condition is the illness should be terminal and there should be no hope of recovery. Second, there should be consent from the patient, and there is a board to decide that, which will be decided by the High Court. The constitution of which will be decided by the High Court. So the background, the background part talks about Aruna Schonberg case. The facts of the case are mentioned it's all spread across those 2 articles. So once you go through it, you would have a decent idea. You don't need to remember the facts of the case. It's for lawyers. All you need to remember is Aruna Schonberg case. That's the name of the nurse. It legalized passive euthanasia as against active euthanasia. Passive is withdrawal of life support of a terminally ill patient and let her die, him or her die. So when we are discussing euthanasia, there are 2 aspects to it, which is one covered purely from UPSC point of view in paper 2, which involves constitution, policy making, etc., and paper 4, which involves the ethics of it. So there are legal questions rather about this issue, and there are ethical questions as well. So the legal questions essentially revolve around Article 21, right to life. Does it also include right to die as well? Right to life is your personal right. Does it mean that you can also choose not to live? Is one critical question that Supreme Court answered in different fashion in different case. There are 2 cases that might help you write a decent answer when it comes to this question. One is this case called Gyan Kaur, which is a very famous case, and in fact the most famous case before Aruna Schonberg, and it's not very trivial, so you can jot it down. Aruna Schonberg versus Gyan Kaur versus State of Punjab. In which Supreme Court held that it's a positive right, Article 21, right to live, and it does not involve right to die. So it held the validity of IPC section 309, which punishes a person who attempts suicide. Obviously, you cannot punish a dead person or their relatives, as Nitish wants us to do with regard to liquor, and I'm sure you know the issue. As in, going by that logic, you can punish your relatives, but in IPC there is no provision to punish the relatives. So only if you attempt and fail to commit suicide would it be punishable. And then there is another provision which talks about abetment to suicide, just for you, which says that anyone who encourages someone else to commit suicide, that encouragement is also punishable. That's another session, and that is not important in this regard. I'm just telling you further. So these are the two punishments related to suicide in our penal code. 309, which punishes an attempt, and the other provision. So Gyankar held the validity, the constitutional validity of this provision. It does not violate Article 21. Then later came this case, Aruna Schonberg. It did not invalidate what's said in this decision, but it said it just said that passive euthanasia, that is withdrawal of life support system, is compatible with Article 21 and hence is valid. But there are procedural safeguards that were given in that case. It said that a High Court bench would decide the matter in consultation with the medical committee. So if only in their opinion would it's deemed fit to take away the life support system, will it be valid? You can't just remove it and then proceed to check its validity or invalidity. You have to first apply to the High Court. So that's Aruna Schonberg decision, and now we are discussing this bill which legalizes passive euthanasia and puts it in form of a legislation. So we will discuss the important points. What are the issues associated? One of the most important issues is the issue related to clause 9. In which this question, the entire question of informed decision comes into play. Informed decision would mean that the patient knew about the nature of the illness he or she has and is of sane mind, and then she decided, or then he or she decided to let others take her life, or let others take away those life support system that's sustaining her life. But that's a very subjective thing. No one can get into the mind of a patient and decide. You can only decide it by the circumstantial evidence, right? You cannot say that the person really knows the nature of the decision when he is making the decision. So it's bringing the element of uncertainty. Just by using this informed consent phrase, the decision is bringing a lot of uncertainty there. Again, it also dilutes this whole consent thing. On the one hand, you say that the consent is a prerequisite for this euthanasia, passive euthanasia. But on the other hand, it says that when the relatives or the doctors think it's not taken through informed decision, they can decide for them. So it's again negating the consent, this thing, right? So it's very dicey. That's one criticism. Second, it ignores the whole question of living will, which is very critical in euthanasia debates. And most of the legislations abroad, like in the Netherlands, in Belgium, etc., let you have this living will. Will, I'm sure you all know, right? You create a will, which usually the will is about your property, right? That this property goes to that person. Basically, it's an expression of your will, which validates your decision post your death or post your incapacity. So living will helps in this case to decide for yourself when you are healthy, when you are fully sane, to decide whether you need life support system in case you are incapacitated by a terminal illness, or if you are in a vegetative state. So living will is a tool that helps you decide your future when you suffer some mishap like this, vegetative state or critical illness. This act doesn't talk about that aspect at all. So that's another criticism. Then court's faith is misplaced. I think that's trivial. Again, it negates the whole point of it. It harps back to the first point we discussed, close 9 point. It takes away the right to autonomously decide on your body and let your relative kith and kin decide for you. That's the court's faith on that regard is misplaced. That's the third point. Any confusion? Any questions? And the fourth point is court make the bill creates another irrational distinction between the person who are competent at the time at which a decision has to be made about refusing, and those who are incompetent at such time. So it never talks about living will, but it talks about the relative's right when the relatives thinks that or the doctors think that I'm sorry, he has not made an informed decision. That's absurdity, right? When you are living and when you are fully sane, the bill doesn't let you make a will to let you decide the future. But when the question is really about when you are ill and when the doctors or you yourself don't know if you are making the right decision, then the court gives you the power, and at the same time takes away that power also if the doctors or relatives think otherwise, that you are not making an informed decision. So it's basically in a little unconstitutional language, it's pure crap, right? As in it doesn't give you any right over your body, actually, the bill. And it can be mishandled as well, right? Your relatives, for obvious reason, they can kill you if they have enough power and money. And there are drafting errors which all the legislations have, so don't write it as a point in an exam. Then the choice of High Court. Again, you are allowed to approach High Court, which is already bombarded with cases. One more thing to handle for them, and that is also given as a criticism. So this is all about the bill, and that's the immediate context of our discussion. But euthanasia is a general issue. Of course, like I said, when you are discussing euthanasia, there are two elements to it: a legal and ethical question. Legal, you can talk about Article 21. Then, to buttress your answers, you can use these two cases. It really says a lot about the kind of information you have and clarity you have. Then talk about Article 309 in IPC. It's about suicide, attempt to suicide, which is punishable under the article, 1 year imprisonment. So that's the legal side. Ethical side is again related to law. Do you have autonomy on your own body? Can you decide for yourself? What are the points for and against euthanasia? When you talk about the ethical side of it, one, euthanasia relieves you from extreme pain. You might be suffering inside. Even if you are in a vegetative state, you would never know. So the patient would be relieved of the extreme pain. Two, from an economic point of view, it relieves their relative of a huge burden, which has no meaningful effect other than seeing your relative life. There's no meaningful, but again, it's a judgmental question. It's all about it's a personal thing also. You cannot decide for others' feelings. But as a point, you can write that. Then freedom of choice, the autonomy point I made. You have autonomy on your own body. Who is a state or who are others to decide for yourself? As in the same point goes for suicide as well. As if you really think about it, the article also talks about it, the other article. The origin of Article 309 is from Victorian morality and Christian ideals, that taking away your life is against the will of the God. against Bible, in other words. Whereas our culture, which is rooted in Indian tradition, Hinduism, various forms of renunciation of love is permitted. We have always revered those saints who have had samadhi and reached, and merged with Brahma. Jainism, Santara, is one of the purest act you can commit in Jainism. So it's a very cultural notion as well. The sanctity of life versus your autonomy of body. So various culture, various religions has their own interpretation as well. So if you're writing a question about a question on euthanasia in a factual situation in paper 4 ethics, you can use this argument. It's given there. So when you're going back, just again use the same format, as in find headings. Just on that corner itself you can write down. You don't make separate notes and all, as in it's another very time consuming exercise. Legal bol ke write down all the legal points. Ethical, for, against, done. All right. Any questions? Euthanasia is a staple essay question. It was oft repeated in UPSC earlier, but I don't think euthanasia would come as a question in essay, but it can come as a fact situation to which you need to answer in your ethics paper, and the bill might come as a question in your GS paper too. We have given a few quotations from Gandhi and some other quotations as well, which you can, and some facts about the legality, law commission, recommendation, etc. about euthanasia. Go through them and try remember a few points. You can use it in your answers. And always, whenever possible, bring in some comparative analysis. Talk about other countries' legislations. When you talk about, for instance, we have discussed the powers of federal court or the jurisdiction of federal court when we discuss the National Court of Appeal issue. Write that in your essay. It really talks about the universal view you have. So whenever you can remember a comparative point, here the case of legalization of euthanasia in some of the European countries like Netherlands, Belgium, etc. Some of the points are given there. Go through them. So whenever you can bring in a comparative perspective on an issue, bring that in your answer. And finally, we will today deal with wetland conservation. By the way, how many of you have given this year's prelims? And you guys are preparing for the next exam, right? Okay. So wetland conservation is important from prelims point of view as well. I'm sure you've gone through your Ramsar convention, Ramsar sites, the basics about mangroves, etc. If you are not, please go back and read your whichever environment book you are using, Shankar's. This is a good website as well. It's pmsias.com or something. It has a very good environment collection of articles. So go through them. Can you tell me something about Ramsar Convention, what it deals with? In your own languages.
It was, I think, first non-UN or extra-UN convention over the wetland. Defined first time. What is wetland and types of wetland.
Types of wetland. Okay, right. You're saying. You know where is Ramsar?
Yes, sir.
Ramsar kidhar hai? My Hindi is not that good, so. Iran, yeah, right. So.
1972, I think. 1972 convention.
Okay. That I'm also not sure. So, wetland is any area like that is the ecology of which is controlled by water. So it can be mangroves, it can be estuaries, it can be lagoons. A list is given there. So just remember, it's not just about mangroves. We have a tendency to relate it to just mangroves, but it's not just mangroves. It's estuaries, riverine wetlands, lacustrine wetlands. I don't know what. Basically, it means those wetlands associated with lakes. It seems so. There are multiple kinds of wetlands, and their functions are given there. It's very obvious. But go through them, remember them from prelims point of view. Tsunami mitigation, a lot of functions that you cannot think about. Also, when you prepare reading about it, also read about the ecology of mangroves, the kinds of plants and animals it sustains. Then you would know that mangroves are ecological niche, right? Yeah. Yeah, and it protects coastal areas from tsunami. There are multiple. It's one of the most biodiverse ecosystems. So you would come across multiple kinds of facts that would find helpful for your prelims. Go through them. It's very critical for your prelims preparation. Then man-made activity, human activities, anthropological causes for its depletion. It's given here: agriculture runoff, industrial affluence, climate change, pollution, habitat destruction, aquaculture. Aquaculture, I'm sure you would know. It's basically fisheries, commercial fisheries. Removal of sand from bed, which is a huge issue in most of the rivers in India. Then overgrazing, conversion of land for agriculture. These are the reason for the depletion of wetland. And mitigation methods also, we have briefly given points. Go through them. But why are we discussing wetland conservation rule now? Because it's being drafted and still in the draft stage. It's very critical because from a larger point of view, you would know that the center is withdrawing from a lot of activities that it had a critical role in. You would know that most of the funds are, as in from 32 to 42%, the fund release has been increased, and the number of schemes that center had a critical role has been transferred to state. So, in the overall scheme of things, states have been the center have been withdrawing from a lot of critical role that it used to play in earlier times, and you can contextualize that issue in here also, and it can also be contextualized in terms of this crony capitalism, neo-capitalism, etc. Not strictly from the UPSC point of view. If you write very radical things in your answer paper, you'd be termed as a communist, and that really doesn't go well with UPSC from what I've heard. But the rule says that the states are given, state as opposed to center, the state governments are given all the authority in terms of wetland management. They can decide which lands can be classified as wetland, what are the measures that should be taken, etc., with no guidelines. When you contrast these rules with the earlier rules, that's 2010 rules, you would find that the center has completely withdrawn from all their duties. So, what are its implications? The article says that it doesn't augur well for the conservation. It talks about a couple of case studies. It talks about the need to critically strengthen the capabilities of ecological system. On the one hand, we are creating interlinking of rivers. We are trying to dredge Ganga. Nitish Kumar was talking about dredging Ganga as a perpetual solution for flooding. On the other hand, the center is withdrawing from all these functions, and let state decide for themselves. And state, for all we know, is not equally expert in some of. One, yes, it's good decentralization of powers, people can decide, etc. That argument goes, but in some of the functions, state really do not have capacity to deal with some of these issues. Whereas water interlinking, basing, interstate basin, everything was under state. Suddenly, under center. Suddenly, the center is telling state that okay, now some of these issues are yours, and which really doesn't go well with how decisions are being made. So, the first case study talks about the importance of strengthening the capabilities of ecological system. It talks about the river interlinking, Ken and Betwa, which is currently ongoing. Then it talks about the Waterways Act, etc. So those are some of the critical projects that our center wants to take up, but these rules doesn't really go well with that policy. Second is the second case study is about the importance of wetland system. It talks about a few freshwater lakes, etc., like Kanwar Lake in Bihar, which is the largest oxbow lake. You know how oxbow lakes are formed, right? Any questions about oxbow? You don't know, right? See, basically, oxbow lakes are formed by really mature river systems. When rivers become really mature in terms of geological scale, they start to meander like this, and they slow very slowly, and very slowly they change the course of their flow, so that some part of this flow is severed like this, and this would become a lake system on its own, and these are oxbow lakes, and they are critical wetlands in states like Orissa, Bihar, etc. So the Kanwar Lake, the example that we have given there, is a critical example because its size has sharply shrunk over the last few decades. So you can use it as an example to show that how our wetlands are shrinking. So what's the solution? The solution is the central should still play a critical role in the conservation of wetland and not withdraw from some of the critical duties that's enshrined on them by the constitution. And you can conclude by saying that. Okay. So go through that material. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. The last article. Can you read? Some of the laws of the land squarely contradicts the autonomy on one's body and associated religious tradition. Do you agree? Explain, substantiate. So, from the discussion that we have had about euthanasia, can you frame an answer? Yeah. Relax, it really doesn't matter. This is how you practice. One of the most difficult thing about UPSC is, to start doing something. Especially answer writing, it's very, you need a lot of mental power to start. So, remember the structure we discussed, an introduction, contextualize the issue. Why are we discussing this question? You can talk about euthanasia, Santara judgment or something and just giving you some clues. It depends on your choice. Then your argument and the conclusion. Not writing? Yeah. Yeah. You can also use, like he is doing, you can use the information on the paper. All we are looking forward is to have a structure, as in facts can be picked up at any time, so you can look at the material and answer. Done? And then again, now you can take all the time, but in a real exam situation, you will hardly get 10 to 15 minutes. If there are 20 questions, you would get slightly more than 10 minutes. Not 10 minutes, less than that. Yeah. If there are 25 questions, it's more time crunch. Earlier there used to be 25 questions, right? So UPSC can change according to whims and fancies. So make sure that you see the question, you know something about it, just start writing. And it's really helped to have a template in mind, so that okay, you would know that okay, interlinking के बारे में पूछा है, okay, what is interlinking? That should be the first thing I write. Then you start writing it, things will start flowing. Don't, as much as possible, don't think and sit and make points and then start writing, etc. It might not work in the main situation. Okay, so yeah, let's start. Can you briefly tell me the points, or you can just read it out what you've written?
Yeah, well, I think when we talk of the law of land, and especially in terms of the cases that deal with the body, and also when we talk of the autonomy of an individual over his or her body, I think these two aspects should not basically contradict each other, but in fact they can actually be very much in sync with each other in order to safeguard the fundamental rights and also the free will in a democracy.
Okay.
For example, when we talk of, I think it's not very about euthanasia, but we can also talk of the recent case surrogacy in this region.
Very good. The question is not just about euthanasia. If you have noticed, it's not just about euthanasia. It can be, the primary operative word is autonomy on one's body and associated religious tradition. It can be about euthanasia. It can be also about surrogacy. It can be just about suicide in general. Then states right to apprehend you.
Or for that matter, in abortion, I guess. The very debate on abortion that is.
Abortion, yes, abortion, yeah. So all these aspects can be brought in this question. This is how you get confused, as in, right now just because we discuss euthanasia, the question is not just about euthanasia. But another operative word is religious tradition. Can you discuss religious tradition in all these aspects? Is another thing that you have to explore. Yes, euthanasia, yes. You talked about Hinduism, Jainism, Santara. Surrogacy? Can you, once you start going on these angles, you have to substantiate it, because the question is as much about religious tradition, right? So there you might find it a little difficult. Yes, you can say that in Mahabharata there were talks about all the Kauravas were born in kumbs, right? So yeah, but that's a trivial point. Again, suicide. Suicide, you can talk about the Christian tradition, sati. The voluntary nature, its voluntary nature. Then again,